This is the United Uprising channel. Welcome to today's show. I want to cover this video game, and I have covered previous versions of this game in the past, called Poppy Playtime. Poppy Playtime, you might have seen this demon that gets promoted. They sell it at stores in the mall. Even I think places like Walmart and Target have it. This character, Huggy Wuggy, which of course they tell you is marketed towards adults, but kids really end up playing with these types of video games. And then, of course, nobody sees the big deal when these demons are popping off kids' heads in the games and doing blood splatter in the games and all sorts of stuff. Because, again, they tell you it's not geared towards kids. They tell you it's geared towards adults, which, again, is part of the underlying problem and theme in this society we live in, where they tell you there's video games geared towards adults, when in reality, adults shouldn't even be playing video games, because we need men to be men. And we need men to lead, and we need men to take control of what's going on. Too many men are distracted with these things like video games because they don't want to face reality here and do anything about what's going on in the world. And it's true. And it's true. People get offended by it, but it's true. And I'm not telling you how to live your life. I'm just telling you the facts of the matter. These games are obviously created for children, and adults who are playing it are keeping a childish mind. That's why I always reference the Bible in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 11. When I was a child, I spoke as a child, I understood as a child, I thought as a child, but when I became a man, I put away childish things. This is something that all Christians, including myself, need to focus on, because we're getting closer and closer to a time period where we need men to be men. So I'm covering this video game because it's geared towards kids, and the undertones in the game, it is very clear they're using what you would call Christian undertones in this game. I'm going to play the trailer for you, and these are the things you should look out for. Of course, we have another emergency alert system. Seems like a common theme in these games these days. And they talk about the good news. Have you heard the news? These children who have suffered, they're growing hungry. The children are saved. The hour of joy arrives. Rejoice. And of course, they're not talking about rejoicing in Christ, because they're talking about what they're referencing as a prototype. And the prototype they're referencing is Jesus. And they're saying that he must die. And I'm not making this up. Watch this clip and tell me that there's not religious undertones. Then I'll show you the imagery and how we know for a fact that this obviously has religious undertones to it.
The following message is for all Playtime Company employees.
Is his God. This is what he does to heretics.
What's happening down here is bigger than all of us. I need you. Revenge on those monsters who tortured you. Just hold on! The prototype has to die. For this. For everything.
So you could hear it for yourself, you could see it for yourself, right? Some of those very important words, like, have you heard the news? That's how this whole thing starts. And people just like, have I heard the news that there's a new video game? Of course, they're referencing the Bible. They're referencing Luke chapter 2, verses 10 through 11. And the angel said unto them, fear not, for behold, I bring you good news of great joy, which shall be to all people. For unto you is born this day in the city of David a Savior, who is Christ the Lord. So as this trailer goes on, you heard that they said the prototype must die. Well, prototype, in a sense, the prototype is Jesus Christ, is God. And they are saying that he must die. And then they use phrases like children. The children are suffering. The children have been saved. The children are hungry. But the hour of joy arrives. Rejoice. These are words in Scripture about rejoice and be glad, right? About your reward in heaven will be great, of those who have faith and follow in Jesus Christ. So this is religious undertones. And then, of course, we see the occult tie-ins, right? And let me show you some of those things, because the trailer starts, of course, with a demon. These, obviously, all of these, the imagery and stuff like that, these types of cartoon images, if you have a history of studying the CIA at MK Ultra, okay, people out there hear this stuff, but like, what about the good old-fashioned days of good old cartoons? They were never good. None of this stuff is good. Even when we grew up, they are programming us just in different ways. It's more in our faces now. It's more rampant now than it used to be. It's more subtle back when we were younger. They were still experimenting and testing. Okay, none of this stuff is good. And they know, obviously, that by using cartoons, what it does is it stimulates a child. When children see cartoons, they're stimulated by it. The colors, the sound, the imagery, right? That's why they put a lot of this demonic stuff in cartoons, and they're able to get away with it because a lot of the parents aren't even watching it. They sit their kids in front of a cartoon and they think that they're just watching something family friendly instead of putting them in front. You know, if you put them in front of Halloween and Michael Myers, the parents might be like, oh, we shouldn't let them watch that. There's all this stuff going on. Well, there's just as much disturbing stuff happening in cartoons. So they always use, obviously, cartoons to get away with this stuff. We've seen all the things that Disney has done in the past, especially with normalizing magic. But here we have this little demon rabbit on, of course, a rainbow. And the rainbow has many, many meanings behind it, right? We all know that the rainbow was God's promise to never flood the earth again. And we know that God's going to torch the earth very, very soon. But they're not referencing the Bible here because the rainbow has been hijacked by other people of the Bible. You might know those people, you know, the ones who, the Pharisees, let's just say, with big noses, okay? Because they use this symbol as well. And this symbol in our culture has a lot of significance to a certain group of people. And if you actually follow the little, crumb trail of where all the origins of this stuff has come from with genders and et cetera, it goes to a certain book of people, the same people you can't question. So anyway, you have that to start it. So telling you who's behind the game. Of course, the reason for the soccer ball is this is an easy way for them to get the black and white Masonic esoteric symbolism in, right? They get their coloring in right there because soccer has absolutely nothing to do with the game. And then, of course, we see other little demons flying around. You see the basic stuff of always showing you pyramids and stuff in front of your faces. But what I want to get to is the use of the crescent moon. Because we see the crescent moon all the time and nobody says much, right? We see the crescent moon. They show you a crescent moon with the stars. They're always aligned together, the crescent moon and the stars. You see the dolls as well with the crescent moons on them. And the crescent moon goes back, obviously, to Babylon, as all of it does. And for people out there that don't know about the crescent moon, why we see it, well, the crescent moon is supposed to symbolize the moon god, Sin. Okay? And the origins of the moon god, Sin, and those actually dates back to Baal worship, right? To Baal, because it's supposed to resemble the horns on Baal, right? You see the photos of the horns and what it looks like to them. That's part of their worship of Baal and Baal worship, right? And where else do we see the crescent moon and the star? We see it on the Baphomet, right? Everybody just looks at the Baphomet and they're like, what is this freak? It's a goat with breasts and a penis. Well, yeah, of course, it is a freak with breasts and a penis, but people never notice, the crescent moon on the as above, so below, right? The light moon and the dark moon. Dark magic, light magic pass, and then the pentagram right on Baphomet's forehead. Because it's hard to miss those things when you're looking at this thing and saying to yourself, how do people worship it? So you sometimes miss some of the obvious ones, right? Like the pentagram or the crescent moons. But we see the crescent moon commonly used in the occult. A lot of celebrities are always wearing crescent moons and stuff. And what do you think? They're fans of the moon. They're like, hey, I love moon. I looking up at the moon. Just like we see the same stuff with Saturn, Venus worship, right? It's Baal worship, essentially, is really what it is. And I've covered so many times over the years that we've seen, the crescent moon and the stars. I have that specific pizza place that sells pizza in Washington, which I'm covering now over on the website. Did a deep dive going into all my archive stuff that everybody needs to see. Because I know a lot of you were not around when I was covering that. Some of you are only a couple years into the channel. Some of you brand new. It's really important stuff. It's my most important work. On pizza, because it's everybody's favorite food, apparently. And of course, the symbol, the logo of this specific place has the same thing. The pentagram, right? The star and the crescent moon. So this is being flaunted out and rolled out to kids. And of course, people out there are like, well, this is really for adults. It's not really for kids. And when I covered it last time, I used some of the news clips that were out there because, small local affiliate stations will bring attention to this stuff. And they show you how this is really targeting, really, being promoted to kids because all they have to do is release it and say it's for adults. If kids see it and they see the imagery, they're going to want to play it. And they see their favorite social, quote unquote, influencers pushing it and promoting it. Thus, the kids want to see it. Here's a clip that aired on the news a few years ago for the first version of this game.
Good morning. A character in a new online video game intended for adults has become very popular with children. You may have heard your kids mention Huggy Wuggy. He resembles a bear, but he is not friendly. This has the attention of law enforcement departments, which have gone so far as to post warnings about the character. I sat down with a few first graders, including my own son, to find out what the fuss is all about.
Huggy Wuggy.
What do you know about him?
He's blue, his head shaped as a heart, and he hugs you until your head pops off.
Huggy Wuggy is a character in an adult horror video game.
Are you chasing me?
Kids have discovered the game and all the spin-off videos on YouTube and other apps.
He's blue, he has teeth like mouse, like razor sharp teeth.
Is he like a fuzzy, cuddly stuffed animal?
No. Yeah, but no, he kind of is. His body looks like a Sour Patch Kids kind of.
These first graders say other kids are pretending to be Huggy Wuggy on the playground, imitating the YouTube videos.
So some people are playing it and they think it's fun. Does everybody think it's fun?
No, not everyone. No, because people think, some people think it's also scary too.
No!
Huggy Wuggy has become the stuff of nightmares.
Children have very active imaginations. Monsters in the closet, monsters under the bed.
Hannah Reed is a child therapist at Wedgwood Christian Services. She says the best way to talk about this with your kids is to listen.
Don't pretend like it's not a thing, because it is to them, it is to their imagination, just like the monsters under their bed. Validate the fear. Say, yeah, that sounds really scary. I wouldn't want that for you either. What can we do to maybe protect you and make you feel more comfortable and confident?
The maker of the video game Poppy Playtime announced last week a partnership with Studio 71 to turn Huggy Wuggy into a movie star. They're working on a feature film. That will likely also be meant for adults, but could lead to more exposure for kids.
I don't like the way he walks.
Reed says it will continue to be important to give your children positive reinforcement.
A character that then turns hugs into something that could hurt you or kill you is a problem for that sort of physical support that children often need.
If you want to watch it, you don't. You'll get bad nightmares.
So on top of all this stuff, you have to worry about kids being exposed and promoted to this stuff. The game has other signs and symbols, and it is just the trailer. Obviously, I only go off of the trailer because I'm not playing the game. Okay, I don't play these games. Despite even I know another YouTuber that builds new channels out and plays games, but those are actually just walkthroughs. But anyway, you'll even see in just some of the stuff in the trailer, constant use of lightning bolts, right? The lightning bolt is something we see in everything, right? It's not, nobody questions it. Nobody goes, hey, what are they, big Jim Cantori fans? They love lightning bolts. No, it has to do with Lucifer, right? I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven. That is biblical, right? That is in Luke chapter 10, verse 18. It's one of the most common symbols that we see in today's society. People don't blink about when they see this stuff. So it's really important to note this stuff because it's marketed towards kids, and they constantly are using these same types of narratives and themes, right? And they're always going to do it in subtle ways to make God into the villain, because their God, Lucifer, who they worship, is a victim. Just like certain people I mentioned earlier are victims, right? Lucifer was wrongfully judged and thrown out of heaven and cast down with the other angels, right? Victims, victims, victims. And they're convincing people in subtle ways that God is in fact the enemy. And for those of you that don't believe it, read the book of Revelation. It talks about how a lot of these narcissistic people are going to act when our king returns, how they're going to be screaming up and angry towards God. So they're using subtle ways to say that the prototype, because the prototype they're referencing is Christ. That's who they're referencing in this. Okay, that's why they're using these undertones with the words on the screen. Nobody gets it. Who's looking at the kids? Okay, have you heard the news? The children have suffered. The children have grown hungry, right? But the hour of joy arrives. Rejoice. And then they say the prototype must die. So this is the type of garbage that's being promoted to your children. And don't give me the stuff about, well, it's not made for kids, right? Oh, okay, right. Well, if the parents aren't being parents, then it is made for kids. And then if we look around, we can see most parents are allowing the television, the social media influencers, and the school system to really parent their children. So kids are exposed to this unless they're completely cut off and their parents are watching them. But they make these games not to make money off of adults. They make these games because they know it'll get in the hands of children. And of course, not to mention the violence and stuff, which we've gotten to a point where everybody's like, oh, that's not a big deal. Grand Theft Auto, Call of Duty, and all these games. Because the adults play the games and they want to play them with their kids, and they don't want their kids to think that it's bad. And it's really just warped. The whole notion of what video games has done to society. And I see a lot of people who are really good people, good Christians, and they get caught up in this like an addiction. And they're like, well, it could be worse. I could be addicted to drugs or alcohol or et cetera. But it really does, have a factor on the mind, play a factor on the mind, and it plays a factor on the household. Because a lot of these men are sitting around playing video games and they're not attending to their wives, they're not attending to their children because they're caught up in this stuff. And they turn to the video games the same way an addict turns to drugs and alcohol because they're trying to escape. But, we're not put here to escape reality. We're put here to face reality. We're put here to be men and not put our childish things away. And that's what we all need to do if we're going to stop what's happening from continuing to occur. And again, when it all goes down, these things aren't going to be there to come for you. You're going to have to face this stuff. So you probably don't want to short circuit when the grid, because when the grid goes down, you might short circuit because these things aren't around. So you might as well get used to it now and start preparing yourself mentally and get away from this type of technology. And I'm not trying to tell you how to live your life. It's a warning for people out there. It's a warning because when I cover these video games, I don't try to sound self-righteous. I have my own problems and my own vices, and things. We all do. We're all in the flesh here on earth. We try not to be in the flesh. We're all fleshly beings, right? There are lots of temptations at every corner. I get it. But for people to dismiss video games like it's nothing and then point fingers at, everything else as if all lust and all these other things are really bad. It's just, they're all not good. Okay. And a lot more comes out of the video games than just as much as other things as far as, taking time away from their family, taking time away from your children. I hear so many stories about women who are neglected by their husbands because they're playing video games all day. That's not men can't be acting like that. Right. And I'm sure a lot of you can relate with it with boyfriends and whatever else out there. And I hear girls that are doing it too. I hear guys saying, hey, my girlfriend plays video. There's obviously girl gamers and all that stuff. So anyway, the point being is about the Satanism in this game, or at least the underlying meaning. This is trending, of course. Why wouldn't it be? But the undertones are for children out there, and obviously to rejoice in the death of the prototype. They're talking about the death of Christ, and they're showing you all the things like the crescent moon and the Baal worship because we see it day in and day out. I thank everybody for being here. Hope you're all doing well. God bless you as always and your families.